Otherwise, I'd have nothing to say, right? By the way, I want to thank everybody who helped come to clean up the yard during the week. I want to thank everybody who helped and gave of their time. But if someone would be nice enough to go there after dark, pull that big metal piece, and also the 3 things that are still in the yard, just get rid of it. I got the weed people coming in on Monday, so we just need to get rid of it. Could you imagine weeds 6 feet high that normal people can't handle? We have to call a special company in there just to handle it. These are killer weeds. Yeah, I don't think there are any snakes. So again, this afternoon I'll be teaching a message entitled Crossing the Raging Yarden. What is Yarden? Jordan. The Jordan. Crossing the Raging Yarden. Turn with me please to Yirmiyahu, chapter 12 and verse 5. Yirmiyahu, chapter 12 and verse 5. Now, I just want to tell you ahead of time, this is going to be a message that a lot of people are going to feel is being preached right at them. But isn't part of the word of Yahweh given for instruction and doctrine and correction, that the man of Yahweh may be thoroughly furnished unto all good works? So yes, part of what I'm going to share with you is given in correction, but not anger. You understand what I'm saying? It's given in correction, but not anger. And what about the people that need this message that are not here today? Well, I'll give it again. Okay. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Because I know a lot of people are on vacation. And we all need this message, let's be honest. What I want to share with you about offenses, we all need. Because we all get easily offended. Correct? Every one of us. You, me, her, him, we all get easily offended. Far too easily. Far too easily. Yirmiyahu chapter 12 verse 5. Again, this message, crossing the raging Yarden. Crossing the raging Yarden. What's the name of this message? Crossing the raging Yarden. What's the name of this message? Crossing the raging Yarden. If you have run with the footmen and they have wearied you, then how can you contend with horses? And if in the land of Shalom in which you trust they have wearied you, how then will you manage to cross the raging Yarden River? Our people were about to enter Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash. Our people were about to enter the promised land. And the word of Yahweh to Yirmiyahu about our people back in those days, and also in the days when they were coming out of Babylon to go back over the Jordan, head west, back over the Jordan, he rebuked the nation. Turn to your neighbor and say, rebuked. Yahweh, through the prophet Yirmiyahu, rebuked the nation. He said, in Babylon, you will not live forever. You are going to go back to the land of Israel. And you become a bunch who are wearied by the sound and by the threat of the footmen, human beings, flesh and blood. If flesh and blood has wearied you, how then will you contend with the horses and the enemies in the spirit realm that are trying to stop you from entering the promised land, the land of your inheritance? If the footmen have wearied thee, how will you contend with horses? If in the land of Shalom you got weary in well-doing and you fainted, Galatians 6:7, if you fainted and got weary in the land of Shalom, how on earth are you going to function when the attacks of the enemy come to stop you? As you're about to enter your ministry and your ordination and your function as a Kohen Lifnei Yahweh. I sense a need in the congregation. We heard it in Daryl, we heard it through Britt, we heard it through Anna. I sense a need in the congregation, in the Kehillah. People are offended. It never stops. This one gets offended, this one gets offended. People are not talking, people are not functioning, people are disappearing, people won't conduct their ministry. And I'm not talking about one or two people, it's a problem. And if we're going to lead the world in two-house restoration, and whole wheat unleavened bread, and the proclamation of the true name, we've got to have tough skin, soft hearts, that sees beyond the offense, or we are going to be blown out of the water before we ever get anywhere. It's not just a few individuals. You got a lot of grown-up wimps. If you don't say hello to them, if you forget to say Shabbat Shalom, if you make a comment like, where you been, how you doing, and they don't like the way you say how you're doing, they think like, how you doing, and why aren't you smiling, and why aren't you happy, whatever. Perception, most offenses are not real, they're imagined. Most offenses are perception-oriented as opposed to actually being an offense. We'll talk about that later. So as a Kehillah, we need to address the offended. We need to address the offending behavior. And we need to address our responses. Again, we're going to talk about addressing those who have been offended, those who participate in offending behavior, as well as our responses to the offenses. Go to Kohelet 10:4. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes. We were there earlier. Let's go to Kohelet, Ecclesiastes 10:4. 10:4, that means it's okay. 10:4, it's okay. Crossing the raging Yarden. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes 10:4. If the ruach of the ruler rises up against you, leave not your place. Now the ruler here is not the rabbi or the pastor. It is demons, unclean spirits, principalities. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:10 through 12. When the not if, but when the ruach of the ruler, the powers of darkness, the powers of shadows, rise up against you, do not leave your place. That's the time to plant your anchor. That's the time to stand firm. When the attack is the greatest, when the offense perceived, whether it's imagined or real, when people have offended you, or you have been tripped over by offensive behavior, and the ruach of the rulers of darkness rise up against you, it is not time to set sail, it is time to stay in your place. And then having done all to stand, stand some more.
And even more.
Notice, leave not your place. For yielding pacifies great offenses. When you yield to who? To the ruler? No. When you learn to yield to the offense, either real or perceived, then you will overcome the wicked ruler that has risen up against you, because by yielding to the offense, or by not counting the offense, or by not dwelling on the offense, that yielding to the offense will pacify, notice, the offense. In other words, Yahweh wants to pacify, notice, Yahweh wants to pacify the offense. And the only way he can pacify the offense that has taken place in your life is for you to stand still, is for you not to be moved, is for you not to be shaken, is for you to plant yourself where you've always been, right in the midst of Yahweh's will. Because very soon, Everything that can be shaken will be shaken, and only those things that cannot be shaken will remain in Bnei Yeshua synagogue or in any walk of your life. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. When the ruach of the ruling princes of darkness, either real or perceived, rise up against you, leave not your place. Is that what Yahweh said through Darrell? Is that what Yahweh said through Britt? Is that what Yahweh said through Anna? When offenses come, don't leave the place that Yahweh has put you. It is better to be in place and offended where you could withstand the storm than to go out on the water, take your eyes off of Yeshua, and like Shimon Kifa, begin to sink without help and without an aid. Somebody talk to me. So if yielding pacifies any offense, turn to your neighbor and say any offense. No matter what they've done to you, they've talked behind your back, they've ridiculed you behind your back, they've gossiped about you behind your back, they've slandered you behind. That is not the time to look for the hills. That is not a time to buy a piece of real estate in Tennessee. That is not the time to look for a new congregation. That is not the time to leave Yahweh's calling and Yahweh's anointing and Yahweh's ministry and Yahweh's will in your life. It is the time to stand firmer, to claim the seat, to claim the carpet, to claim the row, to claim the pew, to claim the address. I'm not moving, I'm not going anywhere until Yahweh says move and until Yahweh says go. Because I've had people move when Yahweh told them to stay, and they got into a lot of trouble. So how do we pacify great offenses? Notice, look at Kohelet 10:4. These are not small offenses. Some of these are real, some of these are imagined. The offended party always feels like the offense is greater than the actual offense. True? I'll say it again. The offended party always specializes in making a mountain out of a mole. They say the offense is greater. In other words, they focus in on the offense and they forget 10 years of victory. They forget 18 years of friendship. They forget 25 years of overcoming. They forget 30 years of growth and expansion and soul winning and discipleship. Everything gets tossed out the window because the offense, which is really just a grain of a mustard seed, becomes so big in the eyes of the offended that they can't see the forest that they belong to because of the trees of offense that have gotten in their way. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Today we will talk about how to yield. Matityahu 18:7. The only way to pacify an offense, brother, is to yield. You ever go driving down the street and you ever see those yellow signs? What does it say? Those triangle signs. Yield. If somebody is doing you injustice, if somebody is mistreating you, if somebody is not giving you what you think you have earned or what you think you are entitled to, either in money, in recognition, or in notoriety, whatever, you need to yield for the offense to pass away. You need to yield. Matityahu 18:7. We'll talk about yielding. Crossing the raging Yarden. If Rabbi Moshe and Darrell and Rebbetzin Rivka and Raina or Opesa and Bruno and Kim and Mordechai, if these footmen have sent you into a depression and a tailspin where they're your brothers and your sisters and they mean you nothing but good and nothing but tov, how are you going to contend with Islam? How are you going to be used as with 144,000 when all hell breaks loose on this earth? If the footmen have wearied thee, how will you and I contend with horses? I don't care how much Bible you know. I don't care how much Torah you know. I don't care how big your tzitzit are. If you do not study how to yield to the offenses that you have perceived to be great against you, you will be rendered null, void, and ineffective in the kingdom of Yahweh. I guarantee it. You show me an overly sensitive woman or man who is overly sensitive, they cannot serve Yahweh. Because this is a battle. This is a war. And the war is for the mind and the war is for the heart. And that's why you put on the helmet of salvation and the breastplate of righteousness. The kingdom of Yahweh and the warriors of Yahweh in the spiritual realm is not a place for people who are sensitive. If you have a problem with oversensitivity, you need to work on it, and you need to get over it, and you don't need to ignore it and blame other people for your oversensitivity. Because it will disqualify you in the kingdom. I promise you. I promise you, not the rabbi, not the pastor, not the brother and sister, no one will hold you back. No one will hold you back except yourself. Yahweh wants you to go as far as you can in the things of Yahweh. But when we are oversensitive, I'm not talking about not sensitive, we are to be sensitive and caring. I'm talking about oversensitivity. We've got to learn how to yield so that great offenses can be pacified and not grow up into major issues. Mattityahu 18:17. Woe to the Olam Hazeh because of offenses and confusion. For it must be that offenses come. But woe to the man by whom the offense and the confusion comes. Well, let's get into this. So offense and confusion go hand in hand. When you succumb to being offended every week, every Shabbat, every third day of your life, you live in a state of perpetual confusion. There is no translation that talks about confusion other than the Restoration Scriptures True Name Edition. Every other scripture talks about woe to offenses, but the Restoration Scripture says offenses and confusion, they're like love and marriage, they go together. Show me a woman or a man who is easily offended, and I'll show you someone who is constantly missing the will, the plan, and the purpose for their life. Confusion and oversensitivity to offenses, perceived or real, I've seen it over and over and over. I've seen it in my life, where because I'm oversensitive, I get confused, I get depressed, I become withdrawn, and now what radio am I preaching on now? What pulpit am I ministering on now? I've got to take a week off and go to Alamarana because I'm useless. Try taking a vacation from Yahweh, it doesn't work. Every time when I was growing in Yeshua, every time I took a vacation from Yahweh, He'd find a way to get me. I went out to buy some weed, I was already saved. I went out to medicate my pain, I was already saved. I went out to do stuff I shouldn't be doing, and some little old lady cut me off, stopped the car, got out and said, "The Lord told me to give you this piece of paper." I'm like, "Honey, who are you, man?" she don't stop the car. Got out of the car, backtracked in the middle of traffic. It was the Long Island Expressway or the Van Wyck, one of those heathen highways, I forgot which one. And she stopped the car right in the middle of the highway, got out of the car. I was on my way to do something I shouldn't be doing. You can't run from Yahweh, just ask Jonah. So forget the idea of vacations from Yahweh. Whenever you think you need a vacation from Yahweh, you're deceived. The footmen are wearying you, and you are one step closer to sliding back in the world. What does it mean to be backslidden? One step closer to slide out of the will of Yahweh for your life. The most dangerous place to be is outside the will of Yahweh. Do you know that? Not in Miami, even though Miami's a ghetto. Even though I don't go anywhere without a firearm in Dade County. Broward, once in a while, I change my mind. But not in Dade.
Amen.
But guess what? That's not the point. The point is, it would be more dangerous for me to leave Miami and plant myself in my own will because someone offended me. Or didn't pay me. Or forgot to write me. or forgot to contact me. When I was in the hospital, and not as many people called me as I thought should have called me. I have a right to be angry. No, you don't. When you signed the contract with Yeshua HaMashiach, you gave up all your rights. You signed it away to be a slave, a bond slave of Yeshua. You have no rights. Soup, food, love, ministry. These are blessings, but they're not rights. Go ahead and be quiet. See if I care. Offense and confusion are kissing cousins. You show me someone who's offended right now, they're confused about their next step. They're confused. Do I stay in a home fellowship? Do I go back to the church? Do I go back to Guatemala? Do I stop talking to my children? Do I withdraw from my family? Woe to the olam. Offenses and confusion will come. It must be that offenses come. But woe to the man. Notice, Yeshua said, in the world offenses will come. That's not the issue. With the offenses comes a healthy dose or an unhealthy dose of confusion. The question is, when the offense comes, not if the offense comes, when the offense comes, how are you going to handle it? Like the heathen or like Yeshua handled it? How are you going to handle it? What I want to talk about today is how to handle it. Yielding pacifies the great offender. Yielding pacifies the great offense. Yielding pacifies the offensive behavior. Romans 5:16. Turn there, please. Romans 5:16. The fall of man is not as great as the gift. For the mishpat of one led to the condemnation of many. When Adam fell, many were condemned. Adam offended Yahweh, many were condemned. But the free gift of forgiveness, by Yeshua's atonement, from many of our offenses, resulted in the justification of many more. Notice, many were condemned because of Adam's offense. But because of Yeshua's free gift of forgiveness, notice, he overlooked the offense and still died for the justification of the offenders. How did Yeshua die for the justification? If Adam brought many children of Yahweh into condemnation, Yeshua brought more into life. How did he do it? By yielding to the offense. He yielded. He overlooked the offense and fulfilled the will of the Heavenly Father. Can I hear a good amen? Amen. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. The free gift took many more who were offended and resulted in their justification. So we see Yeshua's example. Immediate, unconditional release and forgiveness for all offenses, real and perceived. I'll say that again. Because if you don't do it right now, it's going to fester. And instead of being a child of Yahweh who yields to the offense, you're going to let it fester, and instead of being known as a daughter of Yahweh, you're going to be known as an Uncle Fester. And one thing you don't want, is to be known as Uncle Fester, or part of the Adams family. Yeshua didn't put you with Uncle Fester in the Adams family, he put you in the renewed Adams family, or the second Adam family. So if we're going to be like Yeshua, we've got to learn to release immediately the offender and the offense. If we allow the leaven to corrupt our heart and our mind, don't you know that a little leaven leavens the entire, everything you do, your plans, your call, your purpose, your blessing, your anointing, your favor, everything you've gone into, everything you've struggled for, everything you want to inherit, right now, is all in jeopardy. It's all in jeopardy. If you do not allow Yeshua and the Ruach HaKodesh to train you to have unconditional forgiveness and not to be easily offended. Because most offenses, listen, are perceived. I